Get a blue light. Check 1, 2, check 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
Morning, and welcome to the June regular Board of Education meeting for Anthony Wayne Local Schools. We'll start open meeting with the roll call.
Mr. Baden?
Here.
Mrs. Brent?
Here.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Here.
Mr. Lutz?
Here.
Mrs. Ryan?
Here.
Thank you. If you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we'll recognize any visitors in the room. If any, a few visitors in the room, welcome to the meeting.
Morning.
And anyone online or any comments? For...
Yeah, so at this time, there's nothing in there that we haven't already addressed.
All right, so we'll move on to item 2, Board of Education, signing of the minutes from last meeting. Those are
It's 2 meetings.
last 2 meetings.
Yes, 17th and the 2nd.
Any additions, corrections, comments? If not, we'll take a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
If you can call the roll.
Mr. Baden? Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to the treasurer's report. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. First item on the agenda is to approve the financials for May 2021. And AW financials were mailed to you yesterday, although if you had looked at those, I didn't make any comments just because it's a crazy busy time of the year. So I apologize that I didn't take the time to make some notes in there, but there wasn't anything real big there. Under item B is to approve the following donations as listed, roughly about $12,800 worth. I will note that we had $1,135 donated in memory of Ruth Ann Ortner, who was a teacher at White House. And so Mr. Dick and Brad Rhodes are working on purchasing a bench at their request for the property there. Several other donations. We're always very appreciative of these. I don't want to shortchange anybody by not reading all of them. But we are always very appreciative of those donations. Under item C starts the end of my fiscal year, or I should say our fiscal year. The first item that I need the board to approve would be the advance of $276,374.20. And this is money that comes from the general fund and goes to the funds listed, with the exception of the food service fund. The all other ones are federal grants. And this year, they made just a couple changes that you could request a cash request for the grant through July 15th. So fortunately, we had a July 1 and a July 15 payroll. We have 3 pays in July. So I was able to request that. So you notice the ones on here are less than we normally have. It seems like we always have, Title I, Title II, special ed. But the list is a little bit shorter this year. This money will be repaid to the general fund by July 31st, though. Now, with food service, more than likely, I will return that because I have to by July 31st. But then in September, when we approve appropriations, I will probably ask you to advance some money. And of course, the system at ODE cut off on July 15th, or excuse me, June 15th. So we did not get the food service payment that we should have, but that advance is probably about $100,000 more than it needed to be. But since we didn't get those funds, I had to advance based on covering the negative cash balance at that time, or at this time. Can't end the fiscal year with any accounts in the negative. Moving on to final appropriations, our total appropriations were just shy of $59 million. General fund appropriations were $45.7 million. This is up about 3.2% over last year. But which is a good thing, because if you remember, last year's appropriations were down because we had savings for COVID. So actually, the increase that we're seeing this year is basically very minimal. A couple things since we met for the 5-year forecast, though, and these things always throw you off at the end of the fiscal year, but when they do the reconciliation and total charge off for what I call unfunded mandates, which would be the College Credit Plus program and the scholarship program, those two reconciliations in the month of May came in at $325,000 more than last year. So that threw a little curve to the appropriations at the end of the fiscal year. But we did have no deficit spending, and we will end the year with, after advances and these two reconciling items, at about $5.3 million. Any questions on that?
What was the cause of the $325,000 increase?
That is the College Credit Plus program that we pay out. So that was $172,000. It was increased over last year, but it's a combination probably of COVID. And then I think this year we had more students taking online classes with being remote. So we had a huge increase this year. So that was part of that. And then the scholarship is just based on those eligible and those that apply for, like the Peterson, the Ed Choice, all of those.
Thank you.
Moving on to item E is to ask the board to approve the final amended certificate for fiscal year 21. This certifies our revenues and our unencumbered cash balance as of July 1 of 2020. So our total revenue for the year was $57.5 million, and our general fund revenue was $45.2 million. So if you notice, I set up above our total expenditures. We came out, I said no deficit spending. We were about $100,000 to the good. Temporary appropriations, this is for fiscal year 22. I would ask that the board approve the 25% of the 2021 final appropriations as the starting appropriation level for fiscal year 22. I will have the board approve permanent appropriations in September, when that's the full appropriation resolution for the year. And then they'll also approve grants as they are awarded through the CCIP program. And I believe those are the end of the fiscal year motions. The next item is to ask the board to approve the items for disposal for Monclova Christian Academy. Due to the auxiliary funds that flow through the district, they come into us, they go on to the ESC. When they dispose of materials, we have to approve their list. So I would ask that the board approve that list per their letter dated June 9th of 2021. Under item H would be to approve the superintendent and treasurer contract addendums. This would be effective August 1st, 2021, and this was per our June 30th evaluation meeting. Under item I feel like I have half the alphabet here. The joy of the June 30th life of a treasurer is to approve our property, fleet, and liability insurance. So this was kind of interesting. We've been with Trident for the last several years, probably 5 or 6 years at least. And this year, their renewal came in at 86% of an increase. We went from $93,000 to $172,000. And they submitted the claim review, which obviously shows our power surge from 2019, which should have went a claim against the other insurance. So they're making sure that happened. But luckily, we had 3 bids, and the other 2 came in at $105,000 and just shy of $128,000. So I would like to recommend that the board go with Liberty Mutual Insurance at a cost of $105,000, and that would be effective July 1 of 2021 through June 30th of 2022. The biggest thing between Wright Insurance and Liberty Mutual is their deductions were significantly different. So I tried to keep things consistent with what we've had in the past and how we had it with Trident. So just so when we do have claims, we're not paying $5,000 as a deductible. We're paying what we have been paying is $500 or whatever. So I tried to keep everything relatively consistent.
So we still don't know if that power surge was reconciled?
Well, it should be, and I understand that, like it shows, it's still on our claim report, which I understand, but it doesn't show the party at fault. It's like, so it should show the other insurance company. So I want to make sure that that's the case.
Right.
So,
Just so we're on the same page, that basis, am I correct, is from when we did the bond project and the electrician, the subcontractor for the overall contractor did not put in the right equipment. And when the equipment was turned back on, that then power surged through the whole building, which took out many things that summer,
Right.
which was a major issue for us,
Right.
which was not our fault at all.
Right.
no,
Not the district's fault, but the subcontractor's fault at that time. And it was a lengthy process because we had to determine exactly what was the damage.
Right.
It wasn't something you could just do in a day, but it took several months to do because
Right.
things kept coming up
Right.
as a result of that.
and it wrapped up in our claim year this year in the fall of 20, and it was a $250-some thousand claim, which could have been so much more. If that would have happened during the school year when computers were plugged in, and TVs, it could have been so much worse. And again, this was at our junior high building. But still, I want to make sure that we're not being penalized because I'm like, how do you justify an 85% increase?
That's
Especially when the other two were comparable. And, I expected it to increase. They'd been telling us that and just seeing communications through email, everybody's rates are up. So, but that was a bit much. So if they wanted to get rid of us, they did it.
How does the 105,000 compare to the previous?
Right now, or this past year, we paid 733. I just happen to have that number here. So it's still an increase, but it's not as significant as the Trident. So, but that I just saw that and I thought, how do they justify that kind of an increase unless they're holding us accountable for that claim still? So I wanted to make sure that goes off, but
But it mustn't have been traceable though, because the ones
The
that
other
did
ones didn't, right.
see it.
so I'm thinking it's okay, but I have no idea.
Yeah, well,
I have no idea how they justify that type of an increase, so. Um,
it's done.
Under item J is, we work with a program called Strategic Solutions that we started up 2 years ago now, year and a half ago. And it's our online system where the requisition process is done. We continue to add different things. One of our latest things that we're doing is sending out salary notices via email, and they can just click that they've received their notification. It's working out really well instead of sending out paper and mailing them. So it's a good thing. It seems to be well responded. And this is another program. It's a financial dashboard. It's just enhancing more online capabilities. So we'd like to try this. It's new, so they're offering us 50%. We're kind of going to be the little bit of a guinea pig here. But I would like to try this program. It's $39.75 for the year. Just like to see how it goes. Like I said, this strategic solution has been a great thing. We have our receipts everything's being done online, and we're just trying to do more and more like that. So, but this is another little add-on to the program that offers more opportunities to continue to do those things. So, and with the new, I'm sure you noticed when you looked at all the reports, they look significantly different. And this is tying into the new program, so there's a lot more capabilities, and we think it's going to be helpful for payroll because we're really struggling with the payroll right now. So, but not having any payroll errors, so that's all good. But it is a struggle, so we're hoping we can do some better things there.
A struggle just with
In
the,
what sense?
with the,
The new software through the redesign is just not as user-friendly as the old software was for payroll.
so it's just more time consuming.
Yeah, and a simple thing yesterday, got a phone call from a former employee and wanted to know the separation date. Well, to go in there and look that up, it's finding it for one thing. You have to find, like, you can't just go to the bio screen like we always used to do. And after an employee is terminated, they become hidden. And it was saying, you can search it by name, but it says you need to enter a social security number.
But you
Well,
can't access
yeah.
their information.
Which
now.
we have their permanent file as a paper copy,
Elsewhere, okay.
but still, it's just different things and just taking it up. And plus, we do have summer school that we haven't had in a long time. So we had over, $90,000 worth of payroll for summer school, which timesheet's about this thick. So it's just taking a little time, but
So
it's-
this will then allow.
well,
the
there's some things
employees
that
to
will,
access it themselves.
there's some things that will integrate that we could go to where they enter their time online and it uploads into the system. So,
So then push a button.
yeah.
Payroll.
So like I said, we would be I usually don't like to be a guinea pig on stuff like that. I'd like to let someone else make go through the problems, but
Mhm.
I think it's worth it. I think it'll be helpful. So, but
The redesign on for years, the treasurer's been, I think, captive to a system was outdated.
Right.
Agree. And the state was there was a state development team at Nawaka where it was supposed to be centralized there to develop this new financial software system. They were working on it for 15 years
Long.
and it never came to fruition. And so then there was discussions about going to these outside vendors and which one were you going to choose and all this stuff. And finally, they're forcing everybody to go to this new system. And thus, you had a system that you had for almost probably 20 years or so.
I had it for 30.
Yeah, so 30. And now you're going to a new system. And
Right.
so you have those
Learning curves.
those learning curves, transitions and so forth. And then you see the reports. And so they've got to manage all that and figure out how that all integrates into our current actions and policies that we have here. So I've liked the strategic solutions as far as requisitions and approving those. And we've gotten to the point where, all that paper has gone away and it's all done electronically, as well as we've almost gotten to the point where all of our fundraising requests are done that way. And then reconciliations of those fundraisers are done that way as well. So we're getting there where we're getting to be more paperless, which to me saves money in copying costs and all this other things that we're transitioning into. Yeah, we're paying more for these services, but it does help us with that. And it helps the speed too, because we can track where's that requisition at in the process. And it actually speeds that process up quicker, because there's times where, oh my God, I need the credit card because we just qualified for the state championship game in softball and they need hotel rooms and we get rained out. And then we got to create another one because we got to stay that night. And to do that paperwork and get it signed off by us, is difficult within that time frame. So to put it into the system, anybody can do it from anywhere.
You can do it from your phone.
Yeah, and
Right.
so it does speed that process up and those types of things. So it's a transition, not only of the financial software, but our processes moving forward.
Do they offer some tutorials, education, anything that if there's some, or support for,
As far as the redesign goes,
well, and the unknowns like the payroll thing and,
well, they do.
okay.
But, they have a library where you can reference. It's not like, since we started during COVID, It's not like we could go have these sit down, stare at a board and, so it's been a little challenging.
Okay.
But it's getting better, but it's just this time of year is just busy. And like I said, we haven't had summer school for years. We've had some extended learning, but to have a full-fledged summer school going on,
Right.
it's a lot more. So when we're learning the system, because we just converted in March.
Mhm.
So,
Still-
it's
Still fresh, yeah.
It is. The good thing is we haven't had any errors, overpayments, underpayments, so far so good.
And
So-
just one comment about the summer school too, we're doing all this intervention, knowing that last year was a year that was unlike any other as far as educating kids, and that we know that we're trying to move kids forward. That's not going to end this summer. It's going to continue on, as you're going to see in our personnel recommendations with the intervention coach positions that I talked about the last meeting and the meeting before, into next year, and with targeted interventions K through 12. And so our work of providing these interventions to keep kids moving forward based on what we know happened last year will continue not only into the summer, into next year, into the following summer and beyond. And the good news is that the federal government has provided us with some resources to expend in those areas, and we're doing so. And that's where, you see these intervention coach positions and more tutoring help in the buildings and some different things we're doing with some curriculum purchases with in our work on RTI and dyslexia and so forth. I think it's going to benefit us moving forward, not only because it's going to help those kids because of last year, but it's going to help us move forward in educating kids into the future. And so that does put some taxing time onto the workload of the treasurer's office, because we are employing more people right now, especially in the summer, than we ever have before. And we'll continue to do so to expend those federal dollars in a way that is going to help kids.
Right, and that's, with those ESSER funds that Dr. Fritz is referring to, we have to spend 20% of our ESSER 3 funds on that type of learning. So it's
We're
actually,
going to easily do that and go beyond. Yes.
exactly. But it's great for the district to be able to do that and help kids, and kind of make up for some lost time. So,
And we're still going to have some costs associated with COVID moving forward. Until there's nobody who has COVID, and we know that right now that's still going on. Luckily, not at the rate it was in the last school year or last summer, for that matter, or last spring. But we know that there's going to be still an influence. Our goal is still to, have school open in August and be normal, face mask be optional, and all those types of things. And so we're looking forward to getting to August and moving forward. Hopefully, like the governor said, have full football stadiums and soccer stadiums and, volleyball and extracurriculars and fall play and all of those things in the band and, all of those things in full force as we start the school year.
The one thing I think we should say, though, also with the summer programming, I believe that we have probably close to 500 individuals that are participating in one way or another. That could be through credit recovery, that could be through the classroom lessons or the classroom program that's been offered, ACT prep, all of those things have been offered. And I think that we have had a good response. We'd of course, always want more individuals to take advantage of them, but I believe that we really have impacted a lot of students and benefited them, because I think we've had, like I said, close to 500 that participate.
I have one more item. I promise that I'm done. The last one is I would like the board to approve the bond resolution for the purpose of refunding a portion of bonds issued in November of 2011. And basically, this is just like refinancing your home. But any savings is just used to reduce our outstanding debt. So this is originally a 1995 debt or bond that was issued, and this is our fourth refunding on this. So they're callable at certain times of the year. It can be anywhere from 6 to 10 years. So this one is callable in 21. So it won't be final until September or December, but this is the initial stage. But we're locking in the rate of it's a 4.13% savings. Rule of thumb is 3%. So it's not a huge savings, but while the rates are down, it's better than nothing. So it's usually anytime there's, a net savings after, closing costs and everything, I feel it's worth it to do. So I would like to ask the board to approve that. And then this, at that time, will be paid off when we're done with this one. So it's down to $3 million.
And what was its original principal amount?
Oh,
I'm gonna have to put you on the spot.
the original,
Yeah, or more 1995's one.
I was going to say, I can't remember, but I want to say that was a big one. That was like 40, I
That
want to say
was-
like
Did that
46 million.
include this building?
No, that would have been
No.
the high school tech, I'm assuming the high school technology
The wing?
wing.
So that was even after the auditorium and all that.
I don't,
Second floor?
yeah, I'm just guessing because I wasn't not here at that
Yeah,
time. I
yeah.
don't remember exactly, but that just kind of fits that time frame and what I'm thinking back to.
Yeah, it wasn't
wouldn't
the
have been-
Monclova edition in this building. It was, I want to say that was a big one. I
No.
mean,
There was a really big one.
2000. 2001 or 2000 would have been this one.
yeah.
It was, okay. So that was possible. Would that have been the auditorium?
Could be,
and
could be.
The second floor in the high school, maybe?
No,
That a little
I
bit
don't
later?
think that was then,
That might have been. the
but I'd
second.
have to.
But anyways,
I'd have to
whatever.
look into
I
it.
just thought maybe you knew.
Yeah.
So that is all I have, half the alphabet. It's more than you hear from me most of the year. I usually don't have that many items for the agenda at one time, so.
Thank you for putting it all together. I move to approve as presented.
Troy?
I'll second.
Roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the superintendent's reports.
Thank you. First item, I do want to talk about the class of 2001. I shared with you documents I sent an email to you about that class, 350 or so graduates. The majority of them are going off to a 2 or 4 year university. I think it was somewhere in the low 80s percentile. The biggest, obviously with UT and BG being close, BG is still the number one choice of our students, then UT, and then Owens. And we've seen more students going off to Owens or going into employment right from high school. That trend seems to continue to increase, with around 82 or 3% of kids going off to a 4 or a 2 year university, and then another 5% or so going into the military. Now we're talking about 13% or so of students. And like I said, the majority of them are possibly going into the trades, possibly going right directly into the workforce. And we know right now that there are jobs available for them to go into based on what we're hearing from businesses. So that's the good news. When we look at that class, they were offered over $10 million in scholarships. That's incredible. And they accepted over $5 million. And, that I know that there's a lot of, as a parent of a future senior this next year and one that's in college right now, and those scholarship dollars are available. And I'm glad that we have qualified students who can reach out and be awarded so much money. and helps to ease the burden moving forward. And I think our district does a great job of preparing those students for those opportunities. And we also have a couple of kids, it seems, each year they're going into the academies as well. So it just, I wanted to share those documents with you, and Mr. Poole puts that together for the high school and does a great job of doing so. We don't get every student to respond to us, but we get a majority of them. And so that's where that data is based on. And as you look at the majors that they're going into as well, that information was provided. Nursing still the top one. A lot of medical field items in there. Engineering is always a popular one, and business is always there as well. And as we think about our curriculum and how we can engage students, I think it's also important to understand what are they choosing beyond high school, and how can we use that to engage them while they're here. And what, as we provide opportunities to bring in people in our business world and out there in our community to talk to kids about different careers, I think it's important to remember that and look at those choices that they're making to bring that back and give those kids that are currently in our high school those experiences as well. So just a great resource of data to see and just, a recognition of that class is, over $10 million. I think that's the first time we've been over 10 million in the district. So it's just a great accomplishment by them. So I did want to share that with you. I do want to mention the fact that we are, Mr. Herman, the building principals, some of our staff that have been involved in the hiring process since really April. I think Mr. Herman said yesterday that we've had over 31 certified staff that we're bringing in new. That fills, positions that were empty as far as retirements and resignations, and one-year temporary positions that were available. It also fills those positions that I mentioned earlier, the few of intervention coaches and tutoring positions and so forth that we are bringing in to help our kids this next year. Some of those positions are one-year temporary positions because they're based on funding. But it's been an extremely busy year of hiring, as you're going to see here in a second, and transfers and people moving from building to building, and even in OPSI as well, with secretaries and food service and bus drivers. I'm excited that we've got a bus driver on here, a new one, moving forward, So, we're actively still searching for a lot of OPSI people to just help, with being bus drivers to food service. And, so it's a time, like other businesses in our community where, we post a position, we may get one or two applicants, if at all. And so we're still working on that. We could definitely use some more bus drivers. So anybody in our community who's watching live, playground, cafeteria aides, as well, food service individuals, we're still searching for you to be a part of our organization. So we'll continue that, which then adds on to the burden of the treasurer's office, because we got to do new payroll and the HR staff here to do all that work to get the paperwork done and fingerprints in. And we just went to a new fingerprinting system that we were required to do. And so it's been a busy time as well. And
We have the post-COVID effect here going on for the treasurer's office.
yeah, as we continue to deal with COVID, obviously, as Carrie has mentioned, dealing with the summer school, dealing with ESSER funds and so forth, we're trying to set up on our side the ways to spend those funds, along with, coordinating that with Carrie, but then they have to deal with, all the allocations, all the federal requirements, all the paperwork and so forth. So it is burdening to all of us as we move forward and try to work to not focus too much on what happened in the past, but deal with it moving forward in an effort to educate our kids. So we'll continue to do that. But as you're going to see as I continue on throughout the agenda, a lot of things dealing with personnel. Item B, though, is the overnight trips. We have one for our DECA students here in July that Penna will be covering the cost for. Item C, substitute bus driver pay rate. What we want to do there is a couple of years ago, we had changed the rate to reflect the base pay in the salary schedule for our substitute bus drivers. It's a way to help entice and keep consistent with what other districts are doing. So I'm asking you to approve that sub rate for our substitute bus drivers. And so if you're looking to be a substitute bus driver and you're watching online, $20.17 an hour to do that. We encourage you to apply. You can call Mr. Herman at any time and talk to him about what the process is to become a substitute bus driver. Technology stipend, item D, is more of a clarification than anything of making sure that those are on the appropriate salary schedules as we move forward. There are times where, as we all know, especially with COVID, that we're working from home and there's some technology costs associated with that. And as administrators as well, there are times where I will tell you, I'm using my own personal devices or printing things at home or those types of things on a regular basis because as administrators, we know we're salaried employees and we know that our life doesn't work when we leave the office or our work doesn't end, then we know that it continues on weekends and nights. And so we do this stipend as a part of their salary compensation. And so this is just to make sure it's on the appropriate salary schedules moving forward. Okay. So it's clear and concise. Item E, educational agreements. These are things that we do. Obviously, number one is deals with summer school with the AC2 boot camp. We have some transportation costs for this next school year for individual students who need specialized transportation. Item 4 is to continue our work with Battelle for Kids. That is a slight increase from the last 2 years, but I think it's worth it to continue our work in the Portrait of a General. Specifically, what we're going to do is not only advance that as far as what we're going to, how to integrate that into the learning that's going on within K through 12, but developing a portrait of a leader and a portrait of a educator. And that's the focus for this next year within the work with Battelle. And so what does a leader do in an effort to implement Portrait of a General? What does an educator do to implement a Portrait of a General? And developing that with our SOAR team. And so our SOAR team will work together to work with Battelle. They'll guide us through that process. As well as I would tell you, my Thursday afternoons in the month of June, I was a part of a professional development program through Battelle with Brene Brown, who's a professor, well-known professor out of the University of Texas system, and has written a book called Dare to Lead. It was a very good, 12 hours of my time on those 4 Thursdays to meet with superintendents from across the United States. We went through a process that was facilitated and talked about leadership and the difficulties that we face in our current world, in our society, as well as how to move forward. And I really enjoyed it, talking with different people from across the United States and the struggles that they're having right now and how our students are changing, how our staff is changing, and how our communities are changing. And it was just a great experience. And so they provide those opportunities as well through Battelle for Kids. And as a member of Battelle, you also become a member of the 21st Century Learning Network, which is another national organization. They bring in all the well-known researchers and Bill Daggett and others to provide opportunities for us to learn from. And so it's a great experience, and I think it's a great professional development experience for us to continue that relationship with them. The contract with the Village of White House, I do want to mention that for a resource officer, we're up for renewal at an annual cost of $100,000 effective as of August 1st. And what this does, and I want to remind you, is that we do work with them to seek grants to pay this cost. And at times, it's significantly reduced that cost to the district. Depending on the grants that we can get, I've been co-sponsor of grants with them for this next 3 years, and so we'll see where that goes. I'm hopeful that they'll get those again and be able to dramatically reduce that cost. But also, that continues our service in that personnel position in our district, which I think is vital for our safety and security for our students and staff. For that moving forward. And we've shopped that out before and to look at different costs, really the only other group that provides that service would be the sheriff's office, and it's consistent with their cost as well. And it being that 3 of our buildings are in their jurisdiction, I think that helps as well with our relationship with them moving forward. Number 6 is a contract to help with our officiating class that we started offering last year at the high school. This brings in an individual who has to provide specific training to them. And so we want to continue that for this next school year. So that's all of the items A through E that I would ask you to approve at this time unless you have questions.
I'll move to approve. I'll second.
Pam and Vicky. We can call the roll.
Mr. Baden,
Yes.
Mrs. Brent,
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn,
Yes.
Mr. Lutz,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Item A in the personnel recommendations, you will see that we have 2 resignation and retirement. So we appreciate their service to the district. Jane has been a very, I'll say, awesome secretary at the junior high for many years. And we wish her the best in her retirement. We appreciate Jamie's service at White House as an intervention specialist over the years. And as you'll see, we have been busy with secretarial additions to the district, and I'll mention that here in item B. As I mentioned, that we have several positions that we're filling at this time. I'm hopeful that as a result of this work that we won't have to have our meeting in July. I'll keep you posted on that. But at this time, I'm hoping that that's not going to be the case because we've gotten all this work done at this time. Unless there's times where we'll get notified because certified employees have until July 10th to resign their position, per Ohio Revised Code. We will have to accept that at that point. So there could be that potential. But as of right now, we have all of our certified positions, I believe, filled. And like I said, we have some OPSI positions still to fill that we will continue to work on. But there's several positions, as you will see through that list. And I'll mention, we're going to have 2 new secretaries at the junior high. So Amy Anderson is coming over here to fill Sue Whitmore's position. And then with Jane's retirement, we're hiring, like I said, so 2 new individuals from the outside who will be coming in to fill those 2 positions. We have special ed aides on here. We have FT teachers, intervention specialists, food service workers. Like I mentioned, we have a bus driver on here, so I'm excited about that, who's completed their work in that area, bus aide. So we're excited on those items. We had a little bit of a clarification with our technology specialist that we hired at the last board meeting. She started on the 14th, so we have to do a contract through the end of the month and then her new contract for next year. So we did a new contract, but we just didn't maybe word it the right way. So we're going to clarify that with approval of these items. Item C, substitute employees. So you see the list that we have not only for next year, but for this summer that are helping with extended school year and our summer intervention programs as well. Item D, you see the 3 volunteers for next school year for athletics. Item E, the limit of supplemental contracts. As you see, we're still filling positions, supplemental contracts for this next school year. Item F are the supplemental contracts, which are the regular ones, and it's more of filling extracurricular, and coaching positions for next year. So I'd ask that you approve items A through F at this time in one motion unless you have questions.
I'll move to approve as presented.
Troy?
Troy,
I'll second.
Pam, Ms. Johnson, can you call the roll?
Mr. Baden,
Yes.
Mrs. Brent,
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn,
Yes.
Mr. Lutz,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
I will add too, we will have our teachers, our new teachers coming in August at that board meeting. It will be a full house. But we will have them in there. And then after that, they go to their orientation program for the rest of the day with Mr. Herman. Have that fun. So we will do that. And then we do a separate one for our OPC employees, orientation for the new employees. So it will be definitely probably one of the biggest classes that we've had coming in as far as new certified staff.
How many, I was going to ask something, how many one-year temporaries for the intervention are we?
We'll have to, I'll get that information to you. I know that we will have one at each of our primary buildings for intervention. Well, we'll have an intervention coach at the 3 primaries and at FT. And then we have tutoring, we're adding some tutoring positions throughout the district. So we can get that information to you.
Yeah,
I just don't know exactly off the top of my head which ones are one-year temporary positions. I know that the intervention coach positions are one-year temporary positions.
And there's been
We-
other positions that we've made as one-year temporary
Yeah.
positions too for different reasons.
Yeah, so, and we moved some of our certified staff into the intervention coaching positions, knowing that they would eventually go back into the classroom. And so the positions that we filled that they were previously in were one-year temporary positions. And so some of that happened as well. So,
Right.
And I will share when the teachers have their new teacher orientation. Even if it's really boring, they'll enjoy it because it's their very first time that they're in the district. So even if
Yeah.
I bore them, it's a good day to them.
You never bore them.
yeah, it's a really good program because we bring them in, we do a little bit of the history of the district and obviously have to go through a lot of procedural things and paperwork things and technology and computers and email and all of those types of things. But it's good because, it's a whirlwind for them. It's exciting. Most of them are fresh out of college. But we also have a group that are coming in that have been teachers in other districts and are excited about being here. And it's just it's a great day for them and exciting time because, they go from here to probably the next day they're back in the classroom getting it ready for the school year and so forth. So we're excited about having them all here and look forward to this next school year with them.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Fritz. Next item is 6, recognition of visitors for any future board topics.
We have none at this time unless there's somebody in the audience. No?
No.
Okay.
All good. All right, at this time, we would ask for a motion for executive session for some comments on future board concerns, discussions.
It's for the employment of public employees.
Yeah. I read this one instead, yes.
Yeah, no
Yes,
worries.
I was-
No worries.
I'll move to go into executive session.
I'll second.
Troy.
Try. Roll?
Mr. Baden,
Yes.
Mrs. Brent,
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn,
Yes.
Mr. Lutz,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
At 8:52 a.m.
Perfect.
There will be no action after the board meeting, or I'm sorry, after the executive session. So those online or in attendance, if you'd like to stay, you can. You can watch us adjourn. But we will, after we come out of executive session, we will adjourn the meeting. So thank you. And technically, our next scheduled board meeting is July 8th at 8 a.m. But we may not have that be just for lack of agenda items at that time. And then the next one would be in August, as indicated on our website. Thank you.
Okay, welcome back. We will need a motion to return into regular session.
I'll move.
I'll
Pam?
second.
Roy? And a roll call?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And a motion for adjournment.
I'll move.
Sorry.
Troy and Vicky?
Yeah. And a roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
All righty, thank you.
Everybody have a great day. Thank you.
Hi, Troy.
Troy's
Good
like, I'm
meeting.
out.
No, no.